Come, let us explore breathing exercises versus meditation. Whoops. Oy vey. Okay, here we go. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. The question begins, not able to breathe out fully without tensing my core. The question continues, I always wondered why belly breathing is so difficult for me, unless I'm in the lying position. Turns out when I'm sitting or standing, when I finish my natural exhale, there is still a lot of air left in my lungs, and the only way to get it out is to tense my core. Without doing this, I'm stuck in the top quarter of the breath, doing short breaths. When I'm lying down, gravity takes care of the situation. Breathing through the solar plex by focusing on expanding the diaphragm in all directions, but not fully, it just diminishes the problem. Breathing through my chest feels the least restrictive, but is discouraged by many, and I can tell a clear difference between chest breathing and the other two in terms of relaxing in the lying down position. So I would like to fix the problem and be able to choose breathing techniques in the sitting position properly. Is this the weak core or maybe something else? And the answer is, it's something else. There is a problem, but the problem is not with you. It's not with your heart. It's not with your mind. It's not with your sincerity. It's not with your intention. The problem is with the quality of instructions that you have received, whether in print or in person. And I'm sorry. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. I'm deeply sorry that 90% of meditation teachers believe that being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel are amazingly wonderful things. You see, when we choose the location of our breath, the duration of our breath, the depth of our breath, no less the completeness of our exhalation, we are indulging our yang tendencies. We are practicing patriarchy's pseudo-spiritual path. And once again, this is not your fault. It's the fault of your instructors, be they communicating in print or in person. They've taught you a method that is rigid and controlling. The only way to practice this method is by relying upon discrete regions within your brain, such as those found in the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is a splendid tool if you want to compare, contrast, sort, calculate, reason, or edit. Fabulous. But like a Stradivarius, it is vulnerable, and using it even just a little too much will trigger our amygdala. This thing right here that kind of looks like a P, not the letter P, but the foodstuff P. This thing is the seat of our aggression and our anxiety. So if we are performing breathing exercises with the intention of becoming more peaceful, then we will accidentally shoot ourselves in the foot. It seems that enthusiasm and sincerity are no match for poor quality instruction. But I've got some good news for you. There are parts of our brain that are designed for both mindfulness and meditation. So our job is not to focus or concentrate upon our breath, no less contrive our breath, but merely to change our perspective on our breath, to treat our breath the way a piano student treats their metronome. Let us begin with the seventh fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we are wired by evolution to spontaneously and effortlessly and automatically access our sympathetic nervous system. This bad boy is located in the middle third of our spinal cord, and it is wired to help us to perceive in a very special way, to help us perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Now, this should sound very much less like Yang's rigidity and controlling tendencies, and much more like spiritual Yin's flexibility, tendency to be flexible, and of course, laid back. So during each inhalation, we are already wired by evolution to notice all manner of things. Sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. We are wired to notice entire spectrum of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. Now, doing so can seem a trifle overwhelming, and fortunately, evolution has given us a solution for that. We turn our attention now to the eighth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, meditation. Because every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we are already wired to effortlessly and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, located in both the lower third of our spinal cord as well as its upper third. This bad boy has evolved to facilitate both physical relaxation as well as mental release. That's all mindfulness is perception, and all meditation is release. Now, if you're very clever, you might cross your arms, lift your chest, look down your nose, and say, well, if that's the case, oddly dressed fellow, then why aren't I already peaceful? And the answer is Urkel. Our brain is a lot like Urkel. Clever, good-hearted, but klutzy as hell. Our brain is as cluttered with organelles as a hoarder's storage space is cluttered with tchotchkes. But there's an amazingly simple solution. Our brain takes direction. So when we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, this big old brain cannot help but cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, when we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, this big old brain cannot help but cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system. It's as simple as that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, if you want to do deep breathing exercises for your health, the easiest way to do that is to practice 12-phase sun salutation. I'm sure you can find several instructional videos on YouTube. But if what you want is peace and wisdom, joy and love, then I recommend meditation. I think it could be quite fun if together as a team we chanted and meditated together after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. This morning I thought it could be fun to play with the latest iteration of the vast expanse of Diamond Mind. It was composed in approximately the 6th century by Prahevajra, recently translated by Yeshe Dondon, adapted and amplified by this bloke what sits before you now. Oh, excuse me. Wow. Let us begin by chanting the 49th verse 3 times. Equal in all its manifestations, there is nothing to gradually arrange. All forms being one in reality, nothing needs to be dedicated in any direction. So this is pretty wild. So what we're going to do now is blend recitation with explanation. Equal in all its manifestations, there is nothing to gradually arrange. So, actually I'm going to do some more chanting than an explanation. All forms being one in reality, nothing needs to be dedicated in any direction. So whatever we perceive during our inhalation, whether that which we perceive is a sight, a sound, a sensation, a flavor, a scent, an emotion, an intention, a thought, a memory, or an imagining, everything is equal. But how is that? Because we could perceive 2 and we could perceive 4, and 2 and 4 are not equal. How does that work? Because every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could both feel equally less graspable, less permanent, and less defining. Okay, well, what's the point of that? It means we don't have to practice witchcraft. We don't have to indulge our controlling tendencies. We don't have to pray to real or imagined entities, begging that our wishes, selfish or selfless, corporeal or spiritual be fulfilled. We don't have to do that. Every time we notice something destructive, when we inhale, when we exhale and release it, we are protected from it. Every time we notice something during our inhalation that seems beneficial, as we relax into our exhalation, it is drawn closer to us, effortlessly, automatically. This is called harnessing the fundamental duality of pushing and pulling. You and I have an inner ear, full of tubes and hairs and fluids and nerves that help us to walk upright effortlessly. No one has to concentrate on working upright if everything is going according to plan. Similarly, we don't have to focus on pushing away the dangerous stuff and pulling towards us the good stuff. By simply noticing things that go on, we will automatically notice whether something seems pleasurable, painful, beneficial, or harmful. And by relaxing, we're letting the processes take care of themselves. We're not muddling with them. Now, so Buddhism, it was always intended to be a yin tradition, but it didn't take very long at all for people who are on the path of Devadatta, for people on the path of patriarchy or yang, to get their hooks on Buddhism and transform it into something else. The Buddha never meant his teachings to be a system of worship, but rather just tools for meditation. Even in the Dhammapada we read that it's better to spend an hour in meditation than a lifetime spent tending a sacred flame. That's reflecting the superiority of meditation to ritual. And verbally or mentally dedicating our spiritual practice towards a specific outcome is a form of ritual. A ritual that is not necessary and does more harm than good because it feeds and indulges our controlling tendencies. So now let's recite this a third time. Oopsie. Equal in all its manifestations, there is nothing to gradually arrange. All forms being one in reality, nothing needs to be dedicated in any direction. We may accumulate and arrange our various offerings, but since they occur naturally, they need no arranging or distribution. So whether we're making dedications or offerings, neither are required. Let's recite this last bit 2 more times. We may accumulate and arrange our various offerings, but since they occur naturally, they need no arranging or distribution. So for instance, just like we're able to notice that which is beneficial or harmful, we can notice that which is a sensual delight and could be thought of as an offering. We notice things flexibly, in a manner that is flexible, loving. We notice things in a manner that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. And that's fine. And that takes care of whatever offerings we need to do. Just to go through life being cognizant is the ultimate offering. Just going through life in harmony with the autonomic nervous system is all the offering we need ever do. We may accumulate and arrange our various offerings, but since they occur naturally, they need no arranging or distribution. Let us now perform our first collection of 144 breaths. To keep track of this, let us gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger upon the tip of our left. Let's try this again. Let us gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger. Rest these two hands palms up in our lap. Doing so helps real or imagined energy to coalesce at our crown. Now you could ask the question, how are we to collect 144 breaths with just 8 fingers and 2 thumbs? There's a 3-step process. First, we break it down to the goal of collecting 12 sets of 12 repetitions. But that just kicks the can down the road and inspires the question, how are we to count to 12 on just 4 fingers and 1 thumb? This is how. I've already mentioned that the most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. So during each time you do that, we can advance the tip of our left thumb upon one of the creases of our right hand, of course beginning with our pinky and working our way to our index finger. And while we're on this subject, the most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. So together, let us begin by collecting our first set of 12 breaths on our right hand. Well, we've learned how to count one set of 12 repetitions, but how do we count an additional 11 sets? So, simple. On our left hand, we advance the tip of our thumb, beginning with our index finger, moving towards our little finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Just that simple. Now, this might seem a little ungainly for any new skill is, but play with this exercise once every 12 hours for the next 1 or 2 weeks before rendering judgment. Let us chant the 50th verse of the text. The true condition being intrinsically perfect, there is no need to make offerings. Pure from its inception, the pristine continuum is already wisdom nectar. There is no need for our minds or our senses to visualize or intend. So this is a reiteration of the previous verse. It's that important. The true condition being intrinsically perfect, there is no need to make offerings. Every time, so things can be all sorts of ways, as we might notice all sorts of attributes of all sorts of things as we breathe in. But as we relax into our exhalation, those exact same things all share the same nature of being less graspable, less permanent, less defining. Simply noticing and releasing are the ultimate offerings. Pure from its inception, the pristine continuum is already wisdom nectar. It's tough to walk by a steaming load of doggy dew covered in flies in the middle of summer and think, oh yeah, that's pure. But whatever we see fuels our fire of mindfulness and meditation. Thus, just as the fuel is arguably a part of whatever we do with the fire, whether it's boil water to turn the steam turbine to generate electricity, to run the hospital to save an infant's life, or whether it's just fuel to light a fire to keep warm in the fireplace in the cabin in the dead of winter. In a very real sense, that fuel is a part of whatever we use it for. Therefore, since the objects of our perception not only fuel our awareness but our release, that therefore whatever we perceive is a part of the process of wisdom nectar. When I was traversing the patriarchal path of pseudo-spirituality, they had us do all sorts of difficult offerings. Some were corporeal, some were physical. Like we'd visualize something and then visualize a row of 10 of it, and then visualize a field of 100 of it, and then visualize a cube of 1,000 of it, and then do that again to visualize a row of 10 cubes, a row of 10 cubes of 1,000, a row of 100, a field of 100 cubes of 1,000, a mass of 1,000 cubes of 1,000, or 1,000,000. And that was exhausting. Doing that over and over and over again, especially when trying to wish the dead into an auspicious rebirth. That was exhausting and time-consuming and fed our controlling tendencies profoundly. The author saying such things are not required. The true condition being intrinsically perfect, there is no need to make offerings. Pure from its inception, the pristine continuum is already wisdom nectar. There is no need for our minds or our senses to visualize or intend. We come now to our second collection of 144 breaths. An efficient way to mark this second collection is for us to gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger, then rest these two hands palm up in our lap. Doing so can help to gather real or imagined energy at the heart wheel. Good morning, and welcome to the third quarter of this morning's group meditation. Together, let's chant the 51st verse of the vast expanse of Diamond Mind. All phenomena are already arrayed and consecrated by the mind's judgments. The spiritual power of clear seeing is the equipoise of contemplative stillness. So, let's chant this a second time with some commentary. All phenomena are already arrayed and consecrated by the mind's judgments. So we are already wired to know the difference between chocolate and dog dew. So we are already wired to notice the difference between that which is beautiful or ugly, melodious or disharmonious, discordant, pleasurable or painful, that which is flavorful or disgusting, that which is fragrant or foul. We're already wired to notice the difference between a pleasurable emotion, a painful emotion, a destructive intention, a constructive intention, a sharp thought, a dull thought, a pleasurable memory, a painful memory, a pleasurable fantasy, a painful fantasy. We're already wired to notice that. And that's neither good nor bad, it simply is. But because of that, the spiritual power of clear seeing is the equipoise of contemplative stillness. Because of that, there is no need for us to make offerings to a real or imagined entity. Despite hundreds and hundreds of years of members of pseudo-spiritual patriarchy telling us to do that. Even though in the Dhammapada we read that it's better to spend a single hour in meditation than an entire lifetime involved in the ritual of tending a sacred flame. The tending of a sacred flame is just an archetype of any type of ritual. The spiritual power of clear seeing is the equipoise of contemplative stillness. So there is a myth that we're supposed to have no thoughts and just focus single-pointedly on something. Sadly, when we do that, we wind up stimulating our amygdala, the seat of aggression and anxiety. So this entire path of the Buddha is predicated on not meditating from our prefrontal cortex, but from our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation. Therefore, contemplative stillness is a metaphor for clear seeing. But what does that mean? That means that as we breathe in and involuntarily practice perception due to the inner workings of our sympathetic nervous system, our perception is vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. It might take great effort to concentrate, but it's actually cowardice because we're protecting ourselves from things. To be completely vulnerable to whatever comes up may be mentally easy, but emotionally requires great courage. And so the author is saying here is, let us not discount the dynamism of this path just because it is easier and it takes less of a toll on our body and brain to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Doesn't mean it's of no use. To the contrary, au contraire. It's actually the ultimate in contemplative stillness to simply notice clearly. And now, let's perform our final recitation of this verse without commentary. All phenomena are already arrayed and consecrated by the mind's judgments. The spiritual power of clear seeing is the equipoise of contemplative stillness. So, oopsie, that's a bit of an error on my part. Let me quickly do the old copy and paste. So, before we actually put this into practice, I would like to do a quick review for whoever just joined us. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation, thus facilitating the perception that we label mindfulness. Similarly, the most effective way of practicing meditation is to silently and mentally and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation, thus facilitating the physical relaxation and mental release commonly known as meditation. So this is going to be our third set of 144 breaths. The easiest way to keep track, I said set, but I should have said collection. The easiest way to keep track of this collection is to gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger upon the tip of our left ring finger, stacking both our hands palms up in our lap. Doing so helps the energy to coalesce at our navel wheel, a real or imagined disc the size of a quarter, horizontal, and about a thumb's width before our spine. We come now to the final quarter of this morning's practice. Even an instant of this contemplation is divine union. The satisfaction of this union fulfills all spiritual commitments. Do bear with me while I do a quick edit. And now the second repetition of this verse with commentary. Even an instant of this contemplation is divine union. So what contemplation is that? The contemplation wherein during our inhalation we practice mindfulness by silently, mentally, and passively reciting the demonstrative pronoun this, and the meditation where we practice release as easily as by simply, silently, mentally, and passively reciting the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation. So, divine union is a deeply figurative passage, and what is meant by that is this. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever sights we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel less graspable, less permanent, less defining, could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a Buddha's real or imagined paradise comprised only of light, like something painted by Maxfield Parrish. What it means is that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever sensations we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as the real or imagined yadam or archetype of a Buddha comprised only of lights. One moment. All right. So what it also means is that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever communication we might have experienced during our inhalation, be it verbal or non-verbal, could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as a real or imagined Buddha's mantra comprised only of light. Similarly, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever emotion, intention, thought, memory, or imagining we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was as non-graspable as a single syllable mantra comprised only of light. So what this is taking literal practices from Mahayoga, or the Tantra of visualization and invocation, and spiritualizing them, and saying, you don't need to visualize, you don't need to invoke. Simply recognize that whatever we perceive is as non-graspable as the metaphoric divine counterpart of legend. The satisfaction of this union fulfills all spiritual commitments. Now, this is a deliciously subversive part of the passage. A fringe benefit of training in mindfulness and meditation in cooperation with our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system is that doing so calms our anxious and aggressive amygdala and stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, the seat of empathy and compassion and love. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertains to this love. And the essence of all Buddhist morality is all about this love, flowing from centered spontaneity. For the more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds will flow in the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. Now, since this love is not a contrivance of concentration or analysis, but the effortless consequence of training in mindfulness and meditation, the author jumps forward and explains that the practice of mindfulness and meditation, which when done correctly is fulfills all our spiritual commitments, fulfills all our vows, or vows of enthusiasm towards the Buddha's example, instructions, and students, vows towards non-violence, vows of empathy, and vows of enthusiasm for our teachers and example, instructions, and students. All these are fulfilled simply by the practice of mindfulness and meditation. Truly one-stop shopping. Going through the 10 steps of various spiritual practices, one is in reality offering the state of non-union, non-dually. In other words, this union of noticing and releasing that is effortless, based entirely upon the inner workings of our central nervous system, is the key to fulfilling all the external facets that people consider to be religious. And so let us now perform our third recitation of this verse. Even an instant of this contemplation is divine union. The satisfaction of this union fulfills all spiritual commitments. Going through the 10 steps of various spiritual practices, one is in reality offering the state of union non-dually. So, let us tie this up in a big red bow. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and passively wow, there's so much noise coming from this damn thing right now. Oh my goodness. The most efficient way to practice mindfulness is to silently, mentally, and practice the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. By practice, I mean recite. The most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. So this is our fourth and final collection of 144 breaths for this practice. Well, that's an error, isn't it? Let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and go over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, the most efficient way to keep track of the fourth collection of 144 breaths and to also allow our energy to coalesce in the secret wheel at the lower part of our abdomen is to gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger, and then stack these hands in our lap, palms up. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 9.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.